Welcome, everyone, to Music Relish Podcast with Perry Denovich and Luca Licchio. Mark Smith is here too. It's gonna be a real good show. Music Relish Podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to Music Relish Podcast, episode number 8. I'm Perry Denovich. I'm here with Lou Colicchio and Mark Smith. And today we're going to talk about the great year in music, 1974. We also have a one-hit wonder. I'm going to talk about a record producer and Bob Moog. And Lou's going to recommend a record for all of us to listen to. So, guys, how you doing?
Doing good.
Everything all right? How are you? Doing all right.
Good.
So, Mark, you 1974. What was happening in 1974 that you want to go on about?
Well, it came out this past week that Welcome Back, My Friends, to the Show That Never Ends, Ladies and Gentlemen. Emerson, Lake and Palmer came out in 74, which is a great live recording. And 74, always in my head, rings a bell. It's a great year. Just thinking back, there's a lot of albums that came out that were just really essential to my music development. But there's also something else you got to know about that year, a little different. In 1974,
like what?
You had the bands like Led Zeppelin filling arenas, of course.
Lou, do you know much about 1974?
Yeah.
I do, but as far as what Mark, he's back. As far as what Mark was mentioning, I think he may be able to continue. And you continue, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I don't know where you lost me, but...
Yeah, go ahead.
We lost you when you were about to mention...
You froze just for a second.
Okay.
You're about to mention ELP. You just started getting into it.
Yeah, so in that year, you had a lot of classic rock bands selling arenas, but you got to remember, you also had Return to Forever packing arenas. Fusion rock, fusion jazz was packing arenas. ELP. I mean, nowadays you wouldn't even think of that. So it was a very good year for music. You had all kinds. You can thank Miles Davis for that, for getting the fusion thing going. And he was playing with a lot of rock bands. So I look back at what came out that year, and the list I came up with, forget it, can't say them all, but there were some really essential albums that year. Oh, and that was also the year Neil Peart joined Rush, so we should make mention of that. And they did come out with a good album that year.
What about jazz fusion? You said, what was, you mean, like the Mahavishnu Orchestra and that kind of stuff?
Yep, you had Mahavishnu Orchestra, you had Return to Forever was Chick Corea's group.
Yep.
And by today's standards, they would play a club, but they were literally packing. They sold out 3 nights at Madison Square Garden. Pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a great time, that all kinds of music. And we're also only a couple of years away from punk. So it's kind of like music business was going to go into a tailspin, the music. And this was probably I don't want to say the last gasp of what we know as rock, but it was a great year.
That's a good point. Like the
CBGB's
thing, and right?
Yeah.
The country was also going through this. It's well-known inflation like we're going through now. There was, kind of political unrest. If you 74 Nixon, we had our first president resign. So things. It was a weird changing year. I guess punk was on the horizon. Bands that were well-known and considered the kings of rock were at that point starting to become considered either like dinosaurs or just a little too much, too over the top, whatever. So it's a mixed bag, and there's other things in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it added up to some great albums coming out, and I'm just going to name a few of my favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, and I won't rush like I did with 1979. No pun intended, rush. So
if you got 90 minutes, then our time is free.
We got the beer. So in 1974, the Genesis put out Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the last album with Peter Gabriel. And we've talked about that.
I kind of like that record. I know it was a lot of Genesis fans do not like that record at all because it was a concept record, apparently.
Yes, It was.
Yeah. Well, the classic prog Genesis fans, that's their high watermark. Then you got the pop Genesis fans. It's too complicated. I don't get it.
I don't think it wasn't, in my opinion, the best album with Peter Gabriel, though.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, I think one with Firth the Fifth probably was my favorite.
I know
but it was a landmark album. Diamond Dogs by David Bowie came out this year.
And what kind of hits, what kind of songs are on Diamond Dogs?
Rebel.
Wow.
Is that the album he played most of the guitar on, or no?
Yeah, you're catching me there.
No, well, that riff.
Because I think I thought he played that riff. I thought that was an album where Bowie did most of the guitar.
No, that
No?
riff was that
Do
was
you think it's Mick Ronson?
Mick Ronson. Absolutely, yeah.
I wish we could have callers in because they could say, "Hey, it was not."
Yeah. But I
okay.
assume because when you listen to the song, Bowie goes do 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 do. He does that throughout the song, so he may have come up with that, and Mick Ronson may have just gone down, done it on the guitar when he was mouthing to him. I don't know. But anyway, what a song!
If Mick Ronson was on that had to have been the last album because he was on Aladdin Sane, even though the Spiders from Mars were broken up. So I guess he did. Yeah, if he used them on Diamond Dogs, that was the last time he was with Bowie. Yeah.
And there was something about that cover. Isn't there I thought I heard you guys and Scott McLean talking about the Diamond Dogs cover, or maybe it was Scott and Jack from Milk Crates and Turntables. They were talking about that cover. There's a couple of covers, or one of them was banned or something. The dog, you could see the dog testicles or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bowie was half human, half dog, and he folded the gatefold sleeve out.
Yeah.
So I'm laying there, yeah, and of course Bowie's going to put dog testicles in there. I mean, come on, can't.
I heard the original album title was called Dog Balls. Didn't a friend of yours suggest we call our old band Dog Balls?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I was in a band.
We didn't do it.
We called ourselves Dog Shit in one of my bands, but yeah, but
if we're a punk band, we may have. But...
Yeah, we weren't.
Okay, so another one that came out that year was Red from King Crimson. Red was the final album until 1980. They were a trio with Bill Bruford on drums and John Wetton on vocals. No songs, if you don't know King Crimson, there's no songs off that album you would know, but it was a big influence on heavy metal of the 80s and a lot of the Black Flag type groups with those really nasty jazzy guitar chords. And it's a heavy album. It's dissonant. Bill Bruford's drums are slightly overdriven, not like Roy Thomas Baker in a good way.
Really?
And excellent album. I would almost say just a slight recommend, listen to it. But it's a very dark record, and it was the sound of a band dissolving right in front of our eyes. It was like it was over.
I know nothing about King Crimson. Nothing.
I
cannot tell you one. I could tell the only song I can tell you about, The Chord of the Crimson. That's all I can tell you about.
Yeah.
I know nothing of King Crimson. Other than Robert Fripp was in the band with a bunch of other people.
You mentioned Black Flag. That was Mike Bloomfield, correct?
No, Black Flag was the band that Henry Rollins fronted after their original singer. They were like
that's right.
Hardcore band.
I should know that.
Greg Ginn on guitar, who founded SST Records.
I was thinking I'm thinking Electric Flag.
Oh yeah.
All right.
So,
now, what did John Wetton go on to be in?
He briefly played.
Asia.
Well, he briefly played in Uriah Heep, and he was in. Yes, Uriah Heep. Then he was in UK.
Right.
And that band should have been bigger than they were with Alan Holdsworth and Bill Bruford. And then, he went on to Asia. That was where he finally hit it big.
Yeah. I saw Alan Holdsworth at the Bottom Line in New York City. That was an interesting show. Interesting guy.
Why, he's a jazz guy?
Jazz rock. He's kind of at that point, he was in a world of his own.
Yeah.
Kind of own thing. He was it was rock, but it was jazz fusion. It was a different thing. But he came after the show just holding a guitar neck, walking around the club. With just no body, just a guitar neck. Yep,
that's Alan Holdsworth. Actually, if you listen to some of Eddie Van Halen's solos, Eddie got a lot from Alan Holdsworth. Yeah.
Yep.
He modeled his guitar playing Perry after like a saxophone, so he's very unique.
Mm-hmm. I think he also helped get his name out there too. He mentioned Holdsworth in some articles about guitar players he thought was great, and he definitely mentioned him.
Yeah. And his first album, IOU, great album with Paul Williams on vocals. Not Paul Williams that we know.
So, Heavy Metal Fatigue is on that, right?
Yeah, that was another album. That's a great album too.
Okay.
And rest in peace because he died a few years ago, so we lost him.
Did he? Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
didn't know.
Much too young.
Glad I got to see
What else happened in 1974 musically?
I was 5 years old. Oh, okay. Speaking of Roy Thomas Baker, Queen 2, which is musically maybe my personal favorite Queen album, but Drums sound like broken eggshells again. Sorry. That had the dark side and the white side. But a very good album. No big hit singles with the exception of Seven Seas of Rye. But very, almost proggish. Their most progressive album. All right. Then, that year, Yes had just lost Rick Wakeman, and they put out Relayer. And with another keyboardist, this is terrible, guys. The Swiss keyboard player that later joined the Moody Blues, Patrick Moraz.
Patrick Moraz, okay.
He was on keyboards for that album.
I've seen that name on a bunch of records, yeah.
Moody Blues, 80s.
In the Moody's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an experiment for them because they lost one of their biggest players, and very dissonant album. I loved it, of course, like anything prog.
Well, what was on there? Anything that was that I would have heard on the radio?
Well, the title track, not title track, the album alongside track was called Gates of Delirium, and the last song on it, called Soon, was edited for a single. If you heard it, you may know it. You may have heard it around, but I can't sing as high. No, none of us is John Anderson, so we're not going to try.
Was Alan White in the band at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was Alan White had joined after Close to the Edge, and he was on Tales from Topographic Ocean. So by then he was a full-time member.
He wasn't on any hits until way late, I believe, until the 90125.
Yeah.
That I can recall.
Some of their albums with him, Wonder Stories, that Relay, that album that came out. Owner of a Lonely Heart was the big song.
Yep.
That year,
that wasn't 1974, right?
Yeah, no, Owner was 81.
Yeah. All right, we drifted a bit. Okay, I get you. Yeah.
I tend to drift, Also, that year, Ian Gillan was replaced by David Coverdale in Deep Purple, and they put out Burn. And that's, Perry, you know that album.
I know that riff.
Yeah.
Can we give a shout out to Ian Gillan's birthday, which was on Friday?
Yes.
Really?
Can we give a shout out to Ginger Baker, whose birthday was on Friday?
Really?
Yeah.
Mark, can we give a shout out to Lou Colicchio, whose birthday was a few days ago?
Friday, August 19th.
Happy birthday, Lou.
Thanks.
You almost shared a birthday with Ginger.
No, we do have a birthday.
You do have. Oh my God, man!
I'm proud to have a birthday with my favorite drummer.
That's great.
So you're a Southerner now, so it's happy birthday to y'all.
Happy birthday to yous.
To y'all.
Happy birthday to yous. Happy birthday to yous and many more.
Can you make me laugh? All right. Wow! And
happy birthday, Lou.
Thank you. Finger pistols.
It's funny. I share my birthday with Steve Vai.
Nice,
you share a birthday with a drummer you admire. I share a birthday with guitars. Yeah,
that's great.
I think I share my birthday with Benny Goodman.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a damn good birthday.
I'll have to
share.
look it up, but I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And Vernon Perone, maybe? Our friend Vernon Perone from New Jersey?
I don't know.
You might.
I know Vernon Perone. I don't know when his birthday is, but...
I don't know.
I was 13 in 1974.
Okay. I was 5. You would have beat me up on the way to school.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to mention this one really quick because I have to say this album and move on immediately, or else Tom Spallone will break down one of our doors. Secret Treaties from BLC. Moving on.
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
No. One of their best albums. Some people think it's the best album.
There
are no best Floor Skull albums.
You are in trouble. You are in trouble.
You're a music relish detainment.
Come on, I'm just being honest.
Penalty box. You're the center square tonight.
I am. I'm Paul Lind, right?
Rendezvous.
All right, moving on. That year, a band that had the former vocalist from Free and the former guitar player from Mott the Hoople, Bad Company, released their debut album on Swan Song Records. It remains my favorite album of theirs to this day. Excellent album. Partially recorded at Headley Grange, right?
Yeah. Does that mean Peter Grant was their manager also?
Not sure. Probably.
I think he was. He might have been. Yeah.
That's got Can't Get Enough of Your Love on it, of course.
Yeah.
Ready for
the guy who raises the sticks above his head every time he plays the drums. Simon Kirk.
Ready for Love, Seagull, that great ballad.
Seagull. Yep. Yeah. That's a good song.
And Bad Company, the song.
Okay. My favorite Bad Company song is Silver, Blue, and Gold.
That's a great song.
It's almost a pop
No,
song.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Give me silver, blue, and gold. It gets a great chorus. It's a good song.
Nice.
Yeah. Any.
Okay. Also that year, From the Mars Hotel by Grateful Dead was released. I know we're getting back into Dead talk. Had my favorite, China Doll, was on that album. My favorite, Jerry Garcia. That and Stella Blue.
Not familiar. Not familiar with any of that stuff.
Yeah, it had some big songs, but it's Grateful Dead. So, yeah, you go shopping, you come back, the song's still on. Welcome Back, My Friends, we mentioned, came out that year. It was a 3-record set. Just say it sold gazillion copies. And for a 3-record set, a gazillion copies.
That's a live record?
Recorded at the Anaheim Convention Center. Yep. And it had a very wishy-washy production because at the time ELP had a quadraphonic sound. So all these years I wondered, why does that album sound so echoey? You have 2 microphones. It's catching stuff in the background. I wish I had attended that tour. I was old enough because they said the sound was amazing.
I guess live records are dead, essentially, right? I mean, in the 70s, people made live records and they sold.
Live records are from huge concerts now, like the Richard Thompson CD that you sent me, Mark. I mean, there's just smaller venues that seem to be the way to go now, you know?
Yeah.
Ryman Auditorium, et cetera.
Like Wilco in a theater.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. But oddly enough, in an era when all live albums had overdubs, Emerson, Lake and Palmer refused to do any re-recordings. They were pushing them to do that. Re-record the stuff that came out wishy-washy. I said, nope, put it out exactly like it is.
So no touch-ups, no touch-ups in the studio. I respect that.
Yeah.
There's some bum notes. If you listen on Tarkus, Greg Lake hits a couple bum notes. They left it all in there.
Bum notes on vocals or bass or keyboard?
Bass. Greg Lake never hit a bum note on vocals. Come on.
I liked his voice, actually.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't it didn't have the greatest range. It was not a powerhouse voice, but it had a good sound to it.
Yeah,
I thought it had a good radio voice. It sounded good coming out of your speakers.
Absolutely bassy. Yeah, It was sad when ELP reformed in the '90s and the cigarettes got to him, and so his voice became he was almost like what Bob Dylan is now, and it was just sad to hear. Yeah, he could sing a melody, but went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he did with Jack Calabrese. Said he grew out of his voice. As men growing out of their voices as they get older.
I grew out of my belt, I grew out of my pants and my shirts. Yeah.
Growth is good. Personal growth is a good thing.
2 more. That year, Queen also released Sheer Heart Attack, which is
2 albums in 1 year?
Mm-hmm.
2 in 1 year.
And Sheer Heart Attack.
That was done back in those days. Yeah.
And that had Killer Queen, Now I'm Here, the song Brighton Rock. I mean, it's an excellent, excellent album. And it was like a medley of songs. Great album. And then,
I remember, excuse me, I remember reading on these Queen records, and this is something that a subject Lou came up with for later. It used to say on Queen records, Queen used no synthesizers. Then it used to say no synths.
Yeah.
Right? I guess whatever studio trickery they used to get those effects, they were not synthesizers.
Yes, they were conventional keyboards, or I guess,
Well,
the word synth it's synth,
Well, they could have put it through a Leslie amp or a Leslie speaker, anything like that, I guess, right?
Anything. Yeah.
A lot of their weird keyboardy sounds. They had a song called "Get Down, Make Love." I don't know if you're familiar with that, and had all these quirky.
I've heard it. Yeah.
That's all Brian May. He was using all kinds of echo machines and everything. He got keyboard sounds out of his guitar just massively. So, the first album to have keyboards was The Game. So they made it all the way to 81 before they used keyboards. Yeah.
A keyboards meaning electronic because Bohemian Rhapsody has piano.
Yeah,
we're talking
they said
electronic keyboards. Okay.
Right. And they never had like a Hammond organ on any album or an Mellotron.
Right, but like 16 tracks of vocal layering, and those kind of things.
Yeah, it's funny, like going into like the mid 80s, when synth pop and all that stuff just became, exclusively using those instruments. It was almost a badge of honor to say, we didn't use keyboards on this record. REM didn't use them. Actually, on the REM's first record, they did Perfect Circle. Other bands were like, we use keyboards on this record. Like, you just discovered the Magic Kingdom or something, But it was almost like a badge of honor or integrity or rock and roll purity to say we didn't use anything too modern or anything too synthetic, as it is.
Yep, exactly.
But, something, whatever. That's it. You think about it, Perry, you and I have the same old keyboard, and it's amazing what they can do. But that's leading up to something else later on in the show.
Shoot. One more. The debut album from an Upper Midlands band, played a bluesy brand of rock, came out. Judas Priest released Rock-a-Rolla. It has a special place in my heart because it's really a good slice of hard bluesy rock. Nothing like what Judas Priest later were.
You wouldn't call it heavy metal.
It's lumped in with heavy metal, but their next album they started to do heavy metal, but Black Sabbath style. But this first album was dark, very dark. But
it's strange how these categories come up. Like Robin Trower, is he blues rock?
Yeah,
you know, I'm asking.
I think so. I think Robin Trower, Pat Travers.
That's sort of a subcategory, isn't it?
Yeah,
I still get Robin Trower and Pat Travers mixed up.
One's laid back, one's crazy.
And like, what's the other? Rory Gallagher.
Yeah, Rory's great.
Another one. He's blues rock, right?
Yeah, I hear he's kind of legendary, but I've heard some stuff. I need to hear something else of his that I can latch onto or maybe appreciate more. I didn't.
His band before he went solo, he had a band called Taste. Look them up; they were pretty good. And actually, in '74, he released his live album recorded in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. He was one of the few artists to want to tour, and so. Couple honorable mentions. Leonard Skinner's second album came out that year. On the Beach, Neil Young. And I'm done. Oh, and Bridge of Sighs, Robin Trower.
Neil Young, exactly. On the Beach. That's the one where the car's sticking in the sand.
Yes.
That was kind of a wacky record, right?
It was an offbeat record, and
Levon Helm, little thing.
Yeah, Levon Helm and Rick Danko, Levon and Rick Danko of the band played on that.
Yeah.
Not everything, but they played on some songs. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. And I also think in 1974, Robbie Robertson played on Mock Bird. Yeah. Bird, like Carly Simon's Mockingbird.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you got any albums, Perry, that you were playing?
I've got, in 1974, they still had singles. Singles were still being played on the radio.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So I'll play a couple of notes of this single that came out in 1974, and you guys will recognize it right away. I know Lou will.
Kill it. God. Seasons in the Sun, Terry Jacks.
1974, big depressing hit single.
Right. When Mark mentioned 74, I said I'm gonna pick out some cheeseball singles. So I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah. What do you have for 1974 as far as singles?
I have to say that song bummed me out, man.
Yeah,
that was just like,
good God, Papa, it's hard to die.
It's reading about young people dying. It's so maudlin, mawkish.
Well, we did a show on those depressing songs way back when.
This
right?
is one. Well, that's one of them.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a trifecta of goofball hits.
What is it?
1974. The artist was Jim Stafford. We mentioned him in novelty songs last week.
Yeah, he had Spiders and Snakes in 74,
yes,
right?
It's the Spiders and Snakes, Wildwood Weed. We were smoking out of Wildwood Weed, and we never knew what it was. And My Girl Bill. She's my girl, Bill. My girl, Bill.
Yeah.
No one else will guess the way I feel about my girl, Bill. You got another one?
I've got another radio hit from 1974. I'll just play the intro, see if you can guess what it is, all right?
Mark was only 5. This isn't fair.
Mark listened to the radio also, right?
You're old. You're old now, Mark. You have no excuses anymore.
Listen, just so you know, guys. Oh.
Then that Chicago died, Paper Lace.
You got it.
Oh. That's just by a drum beat, too, by the way.
You got it.
Just so you know, 1 year later when I was in first grade, I was playing Brain Salad Surgery. I'm a little turntable. So, yeah, I was listening to music. I was a freak. So.
And that's the way you are, the way you are.
That's exactly right. That's why
can I play one more? Can I play one more from 1974?
Keep going, man.
Hit. We all love it. We all love it. We've all heard it. Here we go.
Land the plane, Perry. Jackie Blue, Ozark Mountain Daredevils.
1974.
Produced by?
Lynn's
Produced
Johns.
by who?
Lynn's Johns.
Mark got it. Glyn Johns.
Is his name Glyn or Glynn's?
It's probably Glyn. It's probably no. I think it's Glyn on the records though. I bet it's short for Glyn. I bet it's short for Glynis.
His real name is probably Glynis. Yeah.
His autobiography says Lynn's Johns.
Really?
So, maybe it is. Yeah.
That whole
the Dirk Diggler. It's my bloody echo. It's my bloody reverb.
And this guy, Glenn Johns, who just produced all these bands in Britain in the 60s, he's in the Ozarks in a little recording studio in the middle of nowhere. Probably dressed up like, with the English look, the hair.
Oh, yeah. We're wearing like an ermine coat or something like that. But he knew that song was a hit, and I don't think they did. They're like, it's all right. I'm like, no, this is a hit. I'd like to know the chart number.
We spoke about that in the show in the past because he was a singing drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? He was. Yeah, the guy that actually sang that. He was a multi-instrumentalist, but he played drums on that. I think he played mandolin on it, I think. I got one.
Wow, what have you got?
So he did Billy Don't Be a Hero by Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods. That's another kind of mawkish mark.
That was a radio smash hit.
Yeah, Billy Don't Be a Hero, don't be a fool with your life. I think Billy dies in that one too.
In Vietnam?
Yep. How about this slice of cheese? You're having my baby. What a lovely
Paul
way.
Ankel.
Paul Ankel, yeah. The Streak, Ray Stevens, Novelty. Don't look, Ethel. This is a good one, and this ties into the one-hit wonder from last week, Liar Liar. I can't remember, about the Castaways, because these guys were in that surf movie that they were in. They were called something in Lolly Vegas, but they became Redbone, and they had their hit "Come and Get Your Love" in 1974.
Wow.
Yep.
Cowbell?
No. Wait. Is there a cowbell on it? I don't know.
You're thinking of the Full Monty song. Bam, bam, down, 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 down. What's that called? Yeah.
We have to do a segment, too, called More Cowbell, and we'll just come up with songs that have cowbell in it.
That's a great idea because there's so many more songs that have louder cowbell than that song. I can't say the name of the band, but their initials are BOC. I think I got one more here. Tubular Bells, Mike Oldfield.
Wow.
1974.
1974. I had that album. Yeah.
Yep. I have that album. You gave me that album.
That was scary, man.
It's in my possession.
Well, The Exorcist made it scary.
Yeah. The Exorcist was 1973, I think, when that came out.
So the music in The Exorcist was released before the album Tubular Bells.
Yeah. As far as the music credits, maybe it had Mike Oldfield's name is on it.
Or he capitalized on the success of the movie and they put an album on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had the director's cut of that.
It proves that 1974, man, was a great year for 45s, for LPs, right? Yep. For radio.
And we didn't even touch R&B. There was some amazing R&B stuff.
Were we listening to FM radio in 1974 or not yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but AM was the predominant. AM had more listenership. No, up until like the early 80s, and FM caught up and surpassed it. But I think up until 82 or 83 or something, AM had more listenership.
Yeah. I remember I used to listen to WWDJ or something.
WNBC.
WNBC.
Yep. WNBC.
You got a point there. I mean, because I think FM started late 60s. Did a freeform.
67, I think. It was the first FM.
Scott Muni was one of the pioneers in that.
Hooky dookie.
Right, but it took a while for, most everybody had just radios. Not everybody had stereos.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Yeah.
Now, and as far as Scott Muni was a famous New York FM DJ on WNEW. And the movie Dog Day Afternoon, he was actually, if you read the story, if I'm wrong, please someone correct me. He was, they were Sonny, the guy, the character Al Pacino played, he was speaking to Scott Muni on the radio. And I think he was basically, I think he got him some Heineken. I think he was drinking Heineken while he was holding those people hostage. Great story, great movie. True story, by the way.
So you mean like Scott Muni's voice is in the movie?
No, I don't know if they included that in there. No, he dealt just with the cops. They probably took that out just to
great
brevity.
Movie.
I don't know.
Great movie anyway.
Yeah.
And the great John Cazale.
Yeah, but John Cazale. We all know who he is, right? Mark, you know John Cazale.
Remind me.
He was Fredo in The Godfather.
Yes. Okay.
Did you see The Deer Hunter?
Yes.
He was Stanley. He had a very short career. He died of leukemia right after The Deer Hunter. He made like 5 movies. Every movie he was in was nominated for Best Picture.
Wow.
And who was at his bedside when he died?
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep, yeah. Jersey girl from Montclair. Montclair, New Jersey. She's great.
And the Deer Hunter.
She's a hell of an actress.
The Deer Hunter to this day is one of the most depressing movies I ever saw, but I love it.
It's so sad. I have it on DVD.
Especially if you have 3 hours to spare, you can watch it.
It's very watchable. You know,
it is.
It's
It is.
amazing.
It draws you in, but then you're like,
Yep. Christopher Walken,
Young Christopher Walken. Yeah.
His first movie wins an Oscar.
That was his first movie?
I think so. Yeah.
and it
Wow.
ruined Michael Cimino.
He did Heaven's Gate after that. And he just,
What a flop! Yeah,
what a flop.
I never watched it.
That was a bigger flop than Ishtar, which Perry thinks is a good movie. By the way,
Ishtar is a funny movie, and what I like about Ishtar is
terrible.
the fact that
Unwatchable.
the fact that Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman are just having a blast doing the movie. To me, it's like a Burt Reynolds movie. They're just having fun doing the movie.
Okay. Now, when the movie Waterworld came out, I enjoyed Waterworld.
I did
But
too.
I like the movie too. So
But
do I.
because of the production cost, it was probably the most expensive movie. It didn't do as well financially as they thought. So when they panned the movie, they called it Fishtar. So that's up there
Really?
with SHT and Shark Sandwich. With
and
Final Cut.
who played the little girl in Waterworld?
Daryl Hannah?
She was in Napoleon Dynamite. That girl.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can picture. I don't know.
She played the one who Napoleon ended up with. I bought you a nice bass. And
Oh,
she
wow.
had
Wow, okay.
That was the girl from Waterworld. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Cool.
Yeah.
Have a quesadilla.
So do you guys want me to go into my one-hit wonder?
Yeah, 1974 was
Go
good.
for
It was a very good year.
That was a great segment. It was a very good year. Yep.
For cheesy songs on AM radio.
For a lot of albums and and a lot of 45s on the AM radio. Yep. So I've got a one-hit wonder. I'll play the first couple of bars of it. See if you guys can guess what it is. Lou probably will. And let's see.
I think I have it. The night the lights went out in Georgia.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't
Vicki
get it.
Lawrence.
Wow.
Vicki Lawrence. Little bit of history here. It was written by her then husband, Bobby Russell. She was married to the songwriter at the time, Bobby Russell. Let me play a few more seconds of it, and then I'll get the hook.
He was on his way home from Candletop. Been 2 weeks gone, and he thought he'd stop at Webb's and
Let me get the
have
chorus.
a drink before he went home. Innocent man. Well, don't trust your soul in no backwoods southern law. 'Cause the judge in the town's got bloodstains on.
Is that the
Now-
Mellow Mafia on there?
That's Hal Blaine on drums. That is the Wrecking Crew.
Damn.
The Wrecking Crew. I
Yep.
meant to say, yeah.
Yep.
I heard the bass.
It is Hal Blaine on drums. Yep.
So good.
I can't play any more on the air because we'll get shut down. But here's a couple interesting things about this song. Bobby Russell, the writer, did not like the song. He didn't even want to do a demo of the song.
Wow.
But his wife, Vicki Lawrence, really believed in the song. She tried to talk him into it. So she did the demo for him. She did the demo with him. Just a demo. The music publishers did not know what to do with the song because it wasn't a country song and it wasn't a pop song. It was just kind of in there. They didn't know what to do. They said, well, let's offer it to Liza Minnelli. This is where they were thinking because they didn't really know what to do with it.
Right.
So they passed on the Liza Minnelli thing. Then they said, let's offer it to Cher.
Interesting.
And well, think about it. That,
She could have done
Cher
it. She could have done it.
Sonny Bono, who was her manager, said no. He refused.
Bad move.
Absolutely. Sonny Bono shut it down. So then Snuff Garrett, the producer, says, let's bring Vicki in and do it professionally. And that's exactly what happened. They brought in the Wrecking Crew.
Okay.
And obviously you can tell it's Hal Blaine on drums with the, it's the Wrecking Crew.
It's the tom-toms. Hal Blaine, you can tell by the tom-tom fills. That's him. I wonder who played guitar because I was that. Was it Bill Pittman, the late great Bill Pittman who died last week?
Could very well have been. Yeah.
Was it Tommy Tedesco?
Was one of the Wrecking Crew?
Was it Al Casey, one of the other Wrecking Crew?
Know what? I didn't look up the personnel, but it's the Wrecking Crew and it's Hal Blaine on drums.
Yeah. We could do 5, 10, 15 shows on the Wrecking Crew.
So let me tell you a little more about the song. It went to number 6 on the easy listening charts, right? It hit number 36 on the country singles chart.
36,
But
really?
on the Billboard
country.
Hot 100, it was number 1
Wow.
for 2 weeks. It was uprooted by Tony Orlando, Tie a Yellow Ribbon. That knocked it out of the number 1 spot.
Get that song out of my head.
Yeah, and Billboard
God,
magazine
so
called it the number 11 song of the whole year of 1973.
Wow.
Now, the songwriter, Bobby Russell, he also wrote Honey, I Miss You, Bobby Goldsboro. And he also wrote God Didn't Make Little Green Apples.
Ah.
He wrote a lot of songs, but he wrote like 3 smash hits.
If that's not loving. I heard that the other. I don't know. That's some R&B singer that didn't have a big string of singles or hits.
Well, Little
that sang
Green
that
Apples
song.
was recorded by many, many people.
But there is a definitive, more the most well-known version is an R&B singer that it wasn't like Al Green or anyone like that.
Right,
Wilson
God
Pickett.
didn't. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. My favorite line in the night the lights went out in Georgia is, "Don't trust your soul to no backwoods southern lawyer."
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there's a story here. There's a story. It's a frame up.
So let me fast forward.
Supper's waiting at home, man. I gotta get to it.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
We better leave it at that.
Better leave it at that, Perry. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a great career, and the guy didn't believe in the song. It's amazing.
He did not believe in the song. His wife, Vicki Lawrence, talked
Yeah.
him into it and doing a demo. Yep.
Now, what was Vicki Lawrence best known for before that?
Carol
song?
Burnett Show.
Carol Burnett Show, yeah. So she was a comedic actress and singer.
Yep.
She's the one who did Mama's. She had the spinoff show.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
Nah, see,
I used to
coming
get her, I used to
together
get
in
her
my
mixed
mind.
up. I got her mixed up with Helen Reddy because they kind of look alike. There's a certain similarity, and Helen Reddy had I Am Woman.
Yeah.
That's a big feminist anthem. I am woman, hear me roar.
Yeah.
Oh.
So since we're done with that, let me just go into my producer segment or my record producer segment because, excuse me, my record producer is Thomas Leslie Snuff Garrett.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I
That
love
was
that
a
name.
segue. Nice
Yep.
segue. That was slick.
And he was born in Dallas, Texas in 1938. In 1959, he moved to Los Angeles, and he worked in a record store, and he made a couple connections in a record store. He talked someone into getting him a job at Liberty Records,
Liberty
in LA.
Records.
Liberty Records, and in the promotions department. This is how good he was. Within 1 year of getting that job at Liberty Records, he was making $90 a week in the promotions department. He went to making $140,000,
Wow.
and he soon became the head of A&R at Liberty Records.
A&R, for those of the digital age, it means artists and repertoire. These people went out and found talent. What a great gig to have.
Yep. And
I
he
would
also
love to have been
became a producer as well. He worked with Bobby V. He worked with Del Shannon. He
Bobby
worked with
V.
Johnny Burnett.
He did Italo Rock.
He worked with many, many more after that as well. He hired Phil Spector to produce for Liberty Records. Yep.
Do you
And
know what
he
Phil
hired
produced? Do you know what Phil? I don't know, but do you know what
for
he
Liberty?
might have-
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
This was like 1959.
Okay.
And he hired Leon Russell to be his music arranger as well. Yep.
Another story unto itself, Leon Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So and he also, so what he did was after he stayed there for 7 years at Liberty, after 7 years, he decided to go and start his own ventures. So he started Snuff Garrett Productions. He started a record label called Viva Records, and he also started Snuff Garrett Records. And he produced records, but he had some he had more number one hits than Phil Spector.
Was
Phil
this like
Spector
was it
only had 5 number one hits.
really?
Yep, that's it.
Was this in the mid '60s? Snuff Garrett's main
Yeah, yep.
hit making era. Okay, so he had how many number one hits did he have? Well, he had more than 5, obviously.
He had more than 5. Yeah, he had more than Phil Spector.
Okay.
So so what happened was he built up these companies, right? after a while, in 1968, he sold his companies to Warner Brothers for $2.2 million. So he sold his record label, $2.2 million in 1968. He was sitting pretty, but I guess he grew bored. So he came out of retirement and started producing again. So he produced Half Breed by Cher, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves by Cher. He produced Vicki Lawrence, Nights of the Lights Went Out in Georgia. And these were number one hits. So he did have more number one hits than Phil Spector. So this is how smart. Go ahead. Sorry.
Phil Spector's hits dried up, and well, again from the early mid '60s, River Deep Mountain High kind of was a crash.
66,
but then he did the stuff with George Harrison and John Lennon, but his hit making days were over by that point.
But even all those years, Phil Spector had 5 number one hits. He had many, many top 10 hits.
The Ramones.
But 5 number one hits.
Yeah,
so this is how smart. Go ahead, Mark.
It's ironic. Perry just mentioned until he worked with George Harrison. If he had stayed successful, he may not have worked with George Harrison or John Lennon. He might have said, "Screw you, I'm staying with my thing."
Yeah. I guess,
but they all love that old sound too.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have got to screw up the long and winding road if he.
Yeah. Or George Martin always said, Let It Be was, produced by George Martin, overproduced by Phil Spector.
Wow.
But this is how smart Snuff Garrett was, or how forward-looking he was. In 1976, he bought the rights to 800 movies from Republic Pictures and RKO Pictures.
That's old stuff.
They were up for sale. He bought the rights for those. There was a burgeoning new market of videotape rentals and sales, and he was right there in on it.
Wow.
Made a fortune, of course.
He was on the whole VHS, whole thing going into
when they were videotapes.
Pre-Blockbuster and other video stores.
And then he moved on to movie music production after that. Cannonball Run. The music was produced by Snuff Garrett. Sharky's Machine, another Burt Reynolds movie, music produced by Snuff Garrett. And Every Which Way But Loose, Snuff Garrett was the music producer on those movies. Yep.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, and he died in 2005 in his ranch in Arizona. But
I always wonder how the nicknames come about. What was Snuff? Did he like Snuff Skull?
Yeah, I don't know.
A little pinch between the cheek and gum.
Maybe, maybe with the jaw. Yep.
Yeah.
Thomas Leslie Snuff Garrett.
Wow.
Yep.
So he produced the Cher solo stuff. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Half Breed and Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. Yep. So that's my little producer segment there. Snuff Garrett.
I'm going to check
more number ones than Phil Spector.
And not as well known as a lot of the other producers who've had hits, but maybe not even as much as him. Yeah.
Maybe. Yep.
Yep.
Hey, we had a Music Relish first about 5 minutes ago. I spilled my first glass of wine on the show.
Wow. Didn't you do that once before?
No, but it's all over my shorts. But hey, must trudge on.
Do you need a moment? Keep your pants on, by the way. Don't drop the shorts.
If you're at a concert and you spill your drink, do you go to the bathroom and clean up? No, you just watch the concert. Yeah.
That's why you need a Music Relish piss bottle.
There you go.
Coming your way, bobbleheads, Music Relish bobbleheads, and Pez dispensers.
My Music Relish piss bottle is filled up.
Can't you guys say urine bottles or something?
No. Bottles.
That's too clinical. Come on, urine bottles.
Okay.
I have to take a urine. No, you have to take a piss. All right. You don't say urine off. You say piss off.
Okay. Well,
right.
You want
to see my Phil Collins?
Getting pissed means something different, right?
Drunk.
Yeah. You guys want to see my Phil Collins impersonation?
No.
Well, you're sitting in a chair.
I won't hurt you, Mama.
Scott loves you. Scott loves you right now.
He hates Phil Collins. That was for you, Scott McLean from Milk Crates and Turntables. Well, why don't we mention our friend Tom Spallone, too, from the Going Postal podcast? I think Tom is looking for crazy, crazy stories and sick stuff to put up on his Going Postal podcast.
And Tom's from New Jersey like the rest of us.
Yeah.
He's from New Jersey like the rest of us. He has no more crazy stories. Come on.
Come on.
He shall find them. He'll find them.
Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fodder out there. You just got to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, fodder. Hello, mutter. Here I am.
So Lou, do you want to go into Bob Moog?
You said it right. Bob Moog. I always thought it was Moog.
Well,
Moog.
I saw a video.
It's
of
Moog.
him. No. I saw a video of him, of Mr. Moog
himself,
saying that he was going on about how his name is Dutch origin and it goes back generations.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying in Holland they pronounce it Mock.
Huh.
And he said in Germany it's quite common. They refer to it as Moog. He said, but in the United Kingdom and English-speaking nations, they see the double O and they pronounce it Moog.
Because it's obvious and makes it we don't have to think too hard, you know.
Right. So
Moog.
So anyway, the Moog synthesizer is what you wanted to talk about, right?
I want to talk about him and the synthesizers and the whole impact that he had on music as a whole.
Okay, so give us a little history of Bob Moog.
So as our listeners know, or they don't know, Mark lives in New York State. Perry lives in New Jersey. I live in North Carolina by way of New Jersey. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and Robert Moog. I'm going to call him Moog because when I moved here, that seemed to be the way to say it. He moved here in the late 70s, 78 or whatever, and he died here. Now, when I mentioned this last week that I wanted to talk about him, I didn't know that today is the 17th anniversary of his death. He died on August 21st, 2005. Wow. So, again, the synchronistic events, I just love that shit because it keeps happening. That's why they call it that. But he was an engineer and electronic music pioneer. He had engineering degrees. I mean, a smart guy. But what he did prior to developing the first commercially available synthesizers, he built and sold theremins. Theremins are that it's a oscillators. Some of the terms in this, in my research on this, I don't understand half what I'm reading, but I'll be able to translate it because it's so technical. It's amazing.
Well, you know what? Pop culture reference. Anyone knows what a theremin is? Jimmy Page on Whole Lotta Love, the live. That's a theremin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also, in every horror movie in the 50s.
Well, any cheesy horror movie, they always, Yep.
So it's used using your hands. One hand controls the volume, the other one controls the frequencies of the whatever kind of waves are colliding all over your body, probably. I know a gentleman from New Jersey. He was the music chair at UNC Asheville. He was the original bass player in Blondie. His name is Dr. Wayne Kirby, Doc Kirby. He's a theremin instructor. He does these things around the world. He does them in Asheville as well. But in conjunction with Robert Moog, he moved here. So in Asheville, there is the Moog Music, which is a retail outlet behind on Broadway Street in Asheville, North Carolina, right behind where I worked for over 10 years at Green Life Grocery. And there's also a Moog Museum where you can see some of the original old stuff too. But you actually go into these places and you can buy current synthesizers.
Well, Bob Moog also, he taught at UNC Asheville.
Yes, he did. So once he was selling theremins and this, he collaborated with composers who were looking for more ways and convenient ways to produce electronic music without all this heavy stuff. RCA had maybe one of the first synthesizers, and these things were starting in the 30s. RCA had one called the Mark II. It was a room full of modules with patch cords. It looked like an old telephone operator's nightmare from hell. I mean,
these things was in the 30s?
In the 30s going into...
Wow.
But I mean, I don't know if the RCA one came out in the 30s, but they were starting to use the technology to do this. Incredible stuff. And it's hard to wrap your head around if you're not a technical person. Like I didn't go to MIT, obviously.
Tom Schultz did.
Tom Schultz did, yeah. So he was collaborating with composers who wanted to find a way to create electronic music more convenient, and at one point more portable. So he worked with a man named Herb Deutsch. He's an American guy. He's a composer. So he's got a lot of credit in there, almost in co-inventing as far as, because Robert Moog was not a musician. So he worked with musicians to actually find what he needed to do. So the first Moog synthesizer, I think available in 64, that was commercial, I think it was like $10,000 at the time. I mean, that's a lot of money. It were these giant modules that, oscillators, filters, envelope filters, pitch control stuff, using volume and voltage to create these sounds. A lot of white noise is in there as well. But we use patch cords like we'd use for our guitar to an amplifier. And the things are insane. There's Mark, you're an ELP freak. There's a picture of Keith Emerson with one of the original ones. Like, what a monster! And I mean, I remember going in high school. There was the computer room in high school, like 1975. You walk by going, okay, who's laughing now? These were the guys that they were in on it. Well, you're just like it was rooms of things, just modules and components. But the original RCA Mark 1 and 2 synthesizers used punch cards to translate the information to have these machines and modules produce the sounds that they produced. I did send Mark a couple samples, but let's not play them yet. So in '64, that was the first one, but that was used before the 70s. The Moog synthesizer was used by the Doors, the Stones, the Beatles. John Cage was an early experimental, the avant-garde artist. John Cage was who Yoko Ono worked with. He was one of the first users of the Moog synthesizer. In 1968, there was a composer called Wendy Carlos. Wait, no. Oh, I lost the name. Wendy Carlos. An interesting story unto herself, because she's a very early transsexual, where she was born Walter Carlos, became a woman. I mean, early on in the 60s. This is really interesting stuff if you want to delve into that. She did a very best-selling album in '68 called Switched On to Bach, where she took Bach things and made composers. Mark, do you got it queued up?
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Mark has
Hold on. Damn buffering.
That's technology.
Go one
Where's
second.
Bob Moog when we need him?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a Moog synthesizer.
All done on a Moog, right?
I believe so. And
wow.
All these things, but it's funny because it was control. And that's great.
I suck as a DJ.
But at this point they were controlled by a keyboard. The keyboards were not very big. I don't know how many octaves the keyboard was, but it was a small walnut case thing. It was kind of simple in a lot of ways, the design of it. The internal workings are a whole different story. But at one point, given the popularity, and George Harrison did an album. I wrote the title down earlier. I forgot it, but he did it wasn't
Wonderwall music.
It wasn't Wonderwall. It was something else. He did an album of Moog music in the late '60s.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it came out on Apple or not.
Because he did buy one. He bought one himself. Apparently, it was custom built for George Harrison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
It's Stacey Abrams.
Sorry, I'm
with 3 keyboards.
I hear political ads going. I got you. Now we're in big trouble. Now we're in really big trouble.
Now, in a sense, the Moog synthesizer changed popular music.
Yeah, well, in getting into that, so at one point, because of the size of this instrument, it was a computer. He created in 1970 the Mini Moog. This is the thing that just blew the whole thing wide open.
Yep.
Everything you've heard at that point was done on the Mini Moog.
With it.
You could travel with it. Yep. There were. So that changed. It changed modern music, is what it did. And that's funny because he considered it was like a hobbyist. He never. I don't know if he took it seriously, but he had one patent on some kind of tube filter thing. He actually patented a filter. Everything else related to these, he did not patent, so they became part of public domain, which was good for the synth industry because Roland, at least all these other ARP, all these other companies came out and created synthesizers in the '70s based upon those designs.
Yeah, because I read that
he was
Bob
a bad
Moog
businessman.
Came up with the pitch wheel. That most keyboards do have. Yep.
A pitch wheel, that they said. Someone said that was one thing. If he had patented that, he would have been a ridiculously wealthy man. Because my little $250 Yamaha keyboard has a pitch wheel on it. Yeah. But so definitely like a visionary. But I don't know if he was humble. But it was just something. I guess if he was a musician, I don't know if he would have had more impetus to protect his own creations,
Well,
it's like
Leo
not copyrighting.
Leo Fender did not play guitar.
Yeah.
Right.
Bill Szymczyk, the producer, was not a musician, but he produced hit albums by artists, the Eagles and Joe Walsh, whatever. But like I said, but going before the Mini Moog, the Doors used it, the Grateful Dead used it before the Mini Moog. So whatever albums they did prior to 1970, they used some Moog synthesizer on there.
Now I've read that. Excuse me, I've read that the first major use of it by a big artist was the Doors. Strange Days.
Yeah. And that was what, 67 or 68?
I think so, yep.
Okay.
Want to hear a sample?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Yeah. Now I think they put that on his voice. They ran his voice.
I hear like a keyboard in the background too. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's wild stuff, man. That was what they call a heady time.
Yeah, that might have been 68. I don't know when that record came out.
There was no rules to break, so you just did things, And,
Yeah.
I'm curious what the Grateful Dead might have used it on at that point. And
they had their psychedelic album, Axioma, and that had a lot of weird sounds on it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you read this, Lou? I read that Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees bought the 19th Moog ever sold. Was bought by Mickey Dolenz. Yeah.
Wow. There's other variations too of going into things like the Mellotron and the Chamberlain. Those type of keyboards.
And the Mellotron. The Mellotron is very analog. Actually, it's just tape loops.
It's tape loops. Yeah, that's a completely different.
Right. Now the Mini Moog, the Mini Moog. They didn't have all the modules. It had all internal routing
Rick
devices.
Wakeman was a fan of the Mini Moog. Yeah,
but you didn't have to go patch things like Lily Tomlin as the operator on Laugh, and
Keith Emerson.
Yeah, you did things internally at that point.
Yep.
Now the Mini Moog had several models. There was the Mini Moog D. There was the Voyager. The guy named Herb Deutsch has got some great YouTube videos where he's shown playing it, and this was the guy that came up with helping him with the musical aspects besides the technical aspects of creating the synthesizer. But I mean, think what it did in music. I mean, it's amazing, and it's funny because I'm not I'm not an electronic music person. Although we've done things. Per and I, we have oscillators. I guess we have we have him to thank for that, getting it well known. And we got this stuff too, because if not for Bob Moog, we wouldn't have had this stuff. And bear with me one moment.
Okay. Because
you can hear.
Yeah.
That's an app on your phone?
Yeah, it is.
Nice. Nice.
I
mean, play that at work when I don't want people to talk to me.
With Bob Moog, it's like the it's really a lot of oscillation, right? With the Moog.
Yeah, well, actually, I wrote down some of because I don't know the terms. I wrote down some of the things that he used to create these in the modules, in the original synths, and then duplicated on the Mini Moog. Oscillators, amplifiers, envelope generators, filters, noise generators. A lot of it was white noise. Which they also used in drum machines to create the snare drum effect. That's white noise. Ring modulators. I mean, it's now and some of our synthesizers and even effects units I've noticed, and now I know where they came from. That these were all waveforms that they used. There were square waves, and I've seen how they're created and what they sound like. Sawtooth wave. It looks like a what do you call it? This is the lumberjack saw thing. Triangle waves, and they all create a particular sound. But they use these to synthesize it into actual sounds of instruments. Wow. It's amazing.
So it sounds like engineering stuff.
Yeah, well, these guys they were science. They were geeks. They were white lab coat guys that had vision, and they were creative. Yeah. So he only had one patent, but the artists that have used this, I mean, if you want to go back to the beginning, John Cage, Kraftwerk all over it. Gary
Kraftwerk,
Newman, Devo,
Kraftwerk, Autobahn,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bob Marley.
Quick snippet there.
Yeah.
Give
me some Kraftwerk. I love that band.
Got that rhythmic.
Yeah, like you said, no boundaries, Lou. And Kraftwerk was 10 years ahead of Human League and all those kind of things. Yep.
It sounds like bells going off. It's amazing. Totally visionary. Off the cuff, off the beaten path. That was not mainstream music by any imagination.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that you could see these bands.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
that was Cheap Trick Live at Budokan, wasn't it?
Do you have a list of more songs that were done on the Moog, Lou?
I didn't list songs, but I list artists. Bob Marley used it. Manfred Mann, yes, of course, ELP. The list of songs are endless. I mean, going into hip hop and trip hop, these things once retro retro chic being what it is, a lot of these things, people come out of the woodwork for these things, and they use them on a lot of modern recordings. Our
How
keyboards
about Rush, Closer to the Heart?
Closer to the Heart, yeah.
That's got a Moog synthesizer on it, apparently.
And what was the one we mentioned earlier? That
Hot Butter Popcorn. I think Mark has a sample. The whole song was done on a Moog.
Was it Popcorn? It was Melted Butter. Was the name of the band?
I'm not sure.
Sounds like Kraftwerk.
Now, this was a radio hit.
Yeah. What year?
You hear the oscillation, too.
Yeah. Oh, what year? That might have been, was that 74?
That might have been 74. Yep. Now, I understand Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, has a Moog on it. I don't know where, because all I remember of that song is the acoustic guitar.
Wow. I can picture on Mark just disappeared.
Donna Summer, I Feel Love.
I Feel Love, yeah.
That had a Moog synthesizer on it also, right?
Yeah.
Of course, ELP, Lucky Man.
Yep. I think when...
Go ahead.
We'll probably hear a sample of that in a minute.
Yeah. Gary Newman, Cars.
Yeah.
We can't play it because we'll get in trouble, right?
We can hum the riff.
In Cars.
There he is. Mark, do you have any more sound samples for us? Do you have an ELP thing for us?
Well, there's a couple ELP samples that are huge. First of all, I think everyone will know this.
There it is.
Beautiful.
Now that's a mini Moog.
That's a full Moog.
Full Moog.
Oh, that's the full with the patch cables and everything.
Yeah.
And then the very end is great, where it goes.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And then, of course, another hit they had was "Go Down," which I don't know if everybody knows
Not
that
sure
song.
how that one goes.
That is... You know what? I don't feel bad because Scott has the same trouble doing this stuff. I don't have it.
We've got
I don't
time.
have it. I had it.
How about Magic Man by Heart?
Well, hold on.
That's got some Moog in the middle, right?
Well, I'm going into my music.
I wonder what Manfred Mann used it on. Did he use it on Do What Diddy? I don't think so.
No,
Did he use it?
no,
Did he use it on that? He
no,
probably used it on his version of Wrapped Up Like a Douche.
It was the Earth Band. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, great sound.
That's
great meaty.
What's that song called? Hoedown.
Hoedown.
Yeah.
It's their interpretation of an Aaron Copland song. Hoedown. If you don't know it, listen to it.
Now, Lou, of course, we can't play this, but now I've read that on Abbey Road, Maxwell Silverhammer,
Yeah.
because,
Because
and I Want You, She's So Heavy,
I thought it was Here
all
Comes
have
the
Moog
Sun.
synthesizer on it.
I think Here Comes the Sun does. I thought it did too.
Oh, yeah?
I thought so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if, but
I wonder
what
who played
I've
it.
read-
Who played it? It wasn't Mal Evans. I wonder if it was
No,
George
it's
Martin.
probably Paul.
Probably Paul.
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah. Now, have you heard of a song by Simon and Garfunkel called Save the Life of My Child? 1968. John
Probably.
Simon was the producer. I
John
listened
Simon.
to the song today. John Simon.
John Simon of Blood, Sweat, and Tears and the band fame.
Right.
And Red Rubber Ball.
He played the bass line for the song on the Moog synthesizer. He was assisted by Bob Moog himself
Wow.
in the studio in 1968. Save the Life of My Child by Simon and Garfunkel.
Now, I'm assuming that Bob Moog did the patching for him. Kind of going from one module to another.
Yeah,
to
because
another,
there
to
was no
another.
mini Moog in 68, right? So
Right,
it had
right.
to be, yeah. So that's why he was there. But the bass line in the song was played by John Simon, but assisted by Bob Moog himself.
Very cool. Cool fact,
Yeah.
man. Now, John
Yep.
Simon also plays the tuba on Rag Mama Rag by the band. That's simple. And the tuba
he is
playing
a musician. Yeah,
he's a musician.
Yeah,
the tuba is the bass line basically in that song because Rick Danko played the fiddle.
Yeah. Now this Rush
gotta
song,
love
Closer
music.
to the Heart. How does that go? Like I know it goes closer to the heart.
Then
but
the
where's
men who have
where's
our
the Moog?
places.
Where's the Moog in there? Where's the Moog synthesizer in there?
It could be
It's-
underneath it.
Yeah, if you listen close, it's under the acoustic guitar.
Okay, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I guess I think of Keith Emerson where it's like, do like
No.
it
Sure.
doesn't always
Well,
have to be like that, right?
And
Well,
Lou, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Getty? He just had like a mini Moog up there, right? He didn't have like a full.
I think I
Moog.
saw Mini Moog.
Yeah,
Even on like say Maxwell Silverhammer and Here Comes the Sun, I'm not sure where it is. I think it was something. If it's something that sounds like a keyboard, maybe it is. Like I never knew it was on there. So next time I hear those songs, I'll
yeah.
listen to
And
see
now,
something
this is
where I
what
think
I've
might
read.
be a synthesizer.
Because the world is, and you heard, there's that thing in there. Apparently that's a Moog. And Maxwell Silverhammer, and I Want You, She's So Heavy.
Right.
That's
And Mark, when you cut out for a second, Perry
Yeah.
mentioned also the Donna Summer song. Was it I Need Love?
I Feel Love.
I Feel Love.
Giorgio Moroder
Good.
produced that. Yep.
Well, he was another one that used it on a lot of disco and things like that.
He was a big fan of the Moog synthesizer. Yep.
Yeah, there's a bigger list of songs and artists we could delve into. But we didn't mention Brian Eno.
yeah.
Another a producer that also used a lot of that. Probably
Can you
himself
find
as
I
well.
Feel Love on your phone or something and stick it in the microphone by Donna Summers?
It's like,
Well, while you're talking, I'll just mention something about the Moog. It really wasn't meant to be taken on tour. It was affected by humidity, temperatures. So I have Emerson, Lake and Palmer recordings where the Moog is out of tune with Greg Lake's bass.
wow.
And it really wasn't.
Really?
It's more meant for a controlled environment. And if you see Rick Wakeman, when he played the Moog, he was very controlled. And there was a roadie. Someone had it set. But Keith Emerson was a wild man. He's the one that probably got the most out of the Moog. You'd see recordings of him jumping up, way up, reaching up, getting these little knobs.
Yeah.
And not everything was, some of the recordings, he was kind of rough because he was just figuring it out. It's just amazing.
But I read that
he
Keith
didn't stick
Rick
a
Wakeman-
dagger into the. He didn't stick a dagger into that because it was
That
Right.
was that was the Hammond organ that is now, I believe, the under the ownership of Noddy's Puncture, a Neil pickup band.
sorry.
Whoop. Yeah. That's Donna Summer, right? I Feel Love.
Good song.
Yeah.
Good song.
You can hear that oscillation. That's really what disco was kind of built around in a sense, right?
A lot of those oscillator things that they have a built-in rhythm. It's almost like a drum machine
Yeah, yep.
or a
Yeah.
click track.
Yeah, apparently also like Paul McCartney and Wings, right? It was good for Linda because Linda could hold one note on the piano and the oscillator would take the song to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
She hold one finger on the keyboard, just one finger. And it
And,
was nice.
But the Moog survived up until, as long as we had analog synths, it survived. Zebra, if you ever see Zebra live, Felix Hanneman, the bassist, half their songs have keyboards, so he plays the keyboards. He uses a mini Moog for the bass stuff, which is kind of interesting. So he'd be playing keys with one hand, doing the bass line. But then it made a resurgence. Dream Theater in the 90s.
Yeah.
Jordan Rudess, when they toured,
Yeah.
he brought the full rig on tour with him, the full rig. And it was kind of neat to see. He only did it for one tour, but now you can sample. I have this Roland keyboard that I got back in me. It can sample a lot of the Moog sounds. So it's,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's things I've seen on my effects units, like Sawtooth. And you see that on synthesizer settings. That's from the early Moog things. That's a waveform.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, in fact, they did experience a sort of a commercial decline of sorts when all these other, because of the public domain nature of a lot of the components, a lot of what he did and Herb Deutsch did on these early synthesizers, Roland and et cetera, they could actually use these to create more products and more keyboards that were available. So it didn't have to be this elite thing where only certain people could own a synthesizer. It became
And also in the
well-known
1980s, when a lot of these, Human League type group bands came around, a lot of them could have been using these mini Moogs, right?
Sure.
Now, Human League, from what I've read about Human League,
Casios, the whole thing.
They said no one knew how to play any instruments in Human League.
Wow.
So they all bought Casios, which were, I guess, really inexpensive instruments then. And they created these songs with you know what? Wow. that's a certain talent in and of itself too, don't you think?
Sure.
Yep.
You don't have to be a musician necessarily to make music. You have to know what sounds good going together.
Right.
So
yep.
And you still have to write a song.
And create melody. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
And,
the amazing thing, but he revolutionized modern music, and it's funny because when we've been on milk crates and turntables, Scott and is talking about he loves synth music, and going in the mid '80s, I didn't like a lot of it because I didn't like a lot of '80s production. I didn't like that clinical, cold sounding stuff, and I was guitars, drums, and bass, like classic rock and roll. That seemed like
right.
And it was maybe a thread of sorts. But going back, I've done some revisionist listening to even some old U2, modern U2. I'm like, I'm still kind of ambivalent, but I can hear things in there that I like. But the keyboard aspect, the synthesizer aspect,
and there were
there
were some keyboards like Howard Jones had a really meaty sound. Depeche Mode had a really meaty, and that's and Lou, I know what you mean. Some of the '80s stuff was cold sounding, no bass, no low end.
Yeah,
now the bands that did it with a nice low end, that meaty sound, I just love.
But if you like Lou stated before, when you think about these groups like Flock of Seagulls, right? Just you know what? Without Bob Moog, whether they were using Moog synthesizers or not, that none of that would exist without him.
Right, and even the effect on other instruments. For example, I have an electronic drum kit. When I bought mine I have an old one in 2002. I was like, I'm betraying myself, So I call it a synthesizer. When people said, it's a rubber ducky drum kit, I said, call it what you will, but it's a synthesizer. It's all electronic components. It's something that is, it's sampled, but it without that impetus, without that introduction and all these pioneers in that field, Kraftwerk, Brian Eno, John Cage, all these people, this stuff would not have happened like it did. So all that taboo and all that criticism has been gone for a while.
And we just touched the surface. Todd Rundgren used these things. Utopia and all of these people use these Moog synthesizers.
Yep.
Well,
in fact, the term synthesizer is, where did that come from? Right?
The what? Which one?
The term synthesizer.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like synthetic, almost sounds like a modern term. But there's other things. Bob Moog did end up working as a consultant for Kurzweil. They had some early music computers, the Fairlight, these things, they were computers, but this is all part of the same pie.
Yeah, yep.
Lou, have you been to the Bob Moog Museum?
Funny you should mention that. I've never been to the Empire State Building either. No, I haven't. I know that's on my bucket list this summer. Lou and I were doing some, we chucked up some things, but that was on the list, but we haven't done it yet. But for those, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mark. And there's two things when you visit Asheville, as a lot of people do and will. There's a couple places. There is the Moog Music on 16 Broadway Street. That is actually the retail outlet. And on 56 Broadway Street, more toward downtown Asheville, which is a cool place, there's the Moog Museum. So I will be visiting, and I'm going to take some pictures. I would love to do a little live thing if I could walk around and say, I'm on the Music Relish podcast. Can I just talk to you people without getting sued or harassed or asked to leave the building?
Well, perhaps if Mark and I come down in Rocktober, right?
Yeah.
You're going to
skip monsoon season.
We can all go to the Moog Museum.
Moog, dude. When you're down here, you got to call it Moog.
Hey, guillotine. It's guillotine.
Aluminium.
I'm in a bad mood today. I'm feeling irksome.
Lou, you brought up something that I didn't realize. He wasn't a musician. Assumed, looking at him with hanging with Keith Emerson, I assumed he just fiddled around on the keyboards. I would venture to say Keith was probably the one that gave him, just like Eric Clapton brought up his blues influences. Keith Emerson was always forthcoming and said, "This is Bob Moog. This is the guy that gave me my sound." And he probably got him whatever money he got, other things. But it's interesting. He was a total tech head. Just getting the sounds.
And it's weird because I think hopefully he was a music fan because why would you sell theremins unless you're like a horror movie fan or something? It's such an oddball thing to do back then and actually make them and sell them. But in relation to that, he also with the first Moog synthesizer, he didn't think people were going to buy these things. He wasn't a businessman, but he didn't think he was going to sell as many as he did. But he did of the original Moog synthesizer. When the Mini Moog came about, he sold a whole lot more. But not an incredible amount. So it was definitely maybe just an eccentric inventor. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, as you said, I wrote a song one time with Sop Mitter. We recorded it down by Single Wide Sound, Lou.
The old place.
And I remember we had these little what were those little K-oscillators.
K-oscillators. They were oscillators.
They're oscillators, right?
Yeah.
So we just held the note down for the whole song. And in the end, I said, Lou, I need like 4 bars of stuff to fill in the end right here. So you went on and you played it like a theremin sound.
Yeah, I got a theremin
that
sound.
Song, right?
It got some pitch things in there too.
Yeah.
So oscillators.
All of that because of Bob Moog.
Yeah, man. And it's funny because I was thinking of that today. I was going to dig mine out, but it's buried in a box somewhere because I still have boxes here. I was going to play it through my little bass amp, but maybe some other time. That's why I played that one on my phone, just to give you an example of what some of these early things sounded like. But the oscillators are cool because you can actually get notes. You can find ways to play in keys.
Well, I can play a sample of you playing the thing in the end if you want.
I do.
Okay. This song's called Now and Then. It was written by Perry and Sop Mitter. There's the oscillation.
Brilliant.
That's all Moog synthesizer stuff.
Yep.
When we get to the end. Here comes Lou.
The aliens.
Here comes. So all
Perry.
of that, even that theremin sound, that was Bob Moog.
Perry. Perry's going to sue us. Perry's going to have that removed from that book.
Guys, 1 second.
Yeah.
So that's that song in particular that had the K-oscillator pad and just held it down.
That's
one
it.
note.
Yeah.
I said, Lou, let's hold this down for like 4 minutes. And then it feeds itself back and everything. And then Sop Mitter played electric guitar on it. So interesting thing is, though, while it was happening, while I was recording the song, Sot's there on a notebook. He's just writing in a notebook, and he hands it to me. He goes, here's the third verse, because I said, guys, I only have 2 verses, and Sot wrote the third verse right there on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a really good song. That's a preview of Music Relish Radio.
Yes, but it came to be because of what we were talking about with Bob Moog.
The
and,
influence.
The oscillation and the theremin. He was doing the theremins before he made the synthesizer.
And let's face it, what was the most famous song to use a theremin?
That Beach Boys song,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
What was that song? I
Good
can't think of it at the moment. Good
It's
Vibration. Well, Lou will be back in a second.
Good Vibration. The name of everyone's favorite device. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I have, if anyone wants to hear. Here comes the Moog with Heart.
Oh, okay. That's the Moog synthesizer, right?
That sounds great, doesn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
That sounded great. My pizza just got delivered, actually.
Oh.
Oh, but death was at the door.
No, actually, yeah, I had to go out the window. When you order pizza here, they come to your door with a gun in your face, as opposed to the other way around, just to make sure you're not going to rob.
Luke, did you do
I caught Magic Man there.
Are you going to do a Spicoli and eat in front of us? You know,
Mark was playing that synth part in the middle of, or near the end, or whenever it comes up in Heart Magic Man.
Was that played by Howard Leese?
Good question.
Probably.
No. He did mostly guitars in that band. There was one of the guitarists played a lot of keyboards.
Wasn't he the original guitar player? Ended up leaving, I think.
Yeah,
he was good.
He had
just like the original drummer.
He was seeing Nancy on the side and didn't work out. And I think he may have played the keyboards, but not in authority. It's a great album, though. First album.
Yep.
So while you were getting your pizza,
I wasn't getting a pizza. I had to go to the bathroom. It's my birthday. I can do whatever I want. I can pee my pants if I want.
Music relish trivia.
I was saying to Mark is that when we were doing that song Now and Then, I said I only have 2 verses, and I was sitting there recording it, and I saw Stop Mitter on his notepad, and he just goes, "Here's the 3rd verse." He just handed it to me, and
he's good like
there
that.
It was the 3rd verse. Yep, and he played electric guitar. He played electric guitar on it also.
Yes, he did.
And Luke played the theremin.
I played the theremin, I played drums, and I played bass. The drums inspired by Flock of Seagulls.
Really?
No, I'm sorry. Inspired by the drummer from The Fix. I thought it was Saved by Zero. I thought that drum beat in my head, so that was my inspiration for
you know what?
It's a modern song.
It all comes back around to Bob Moog again. Bob Moog, right?
Yep.
All of it.
A true pioneer. I don't know if he knew he was a visionary at the time. I don't know. I'd like to read more about him as a person because he was married twice. He had several children. He died of a brain tumor in 2005.
Well, no, I did read, though, that he bought his rights back or something,
he did.
Right? He sold the company.
He sold them in like 1971. He couldn't get a loan. He couldn't get the credit for a loan to get his own thing going because he wasn't a business guy. He didn't know what spreadsheets were. He was just, he was a brain. But he did buy. Well, he moved to North Carolina, and then he did buy it back. But I think before that, he was a consultant with Kurzweil, or Kurzweil. But he eventually did buy it back. So he got his name back. But I told him when I first moved here. I moved here in 2006, so I moved here the year after he died, 17 years ago today. That's so cool.
Yeah,
this was meant to be. This was a discussion. But people are like, Bob Moog lived here. I'm like, oh, really? But no, I have a friend, and Perry, you've met him, Mark, you haven't. He goes back a long way. He's a musician friend, a bass player and keyboard player, Rob Littauer. He's a synth freak. He's also an old. I used to tell him, Rob, the techno speak is driving me insane. I couldn't talk to you at times. He was affiliated with the Moog people. He did a lot of, he correspondence. He might have been in correspondence with Bob Moog before his death. But he's come down multiple times to visit the Moog Museum, and Rob and I, he was in my old band Philocinium. He was in Philocinium version 2, where it was my brother Anthony, myself, and Rob on bass. So 4 years ago,
and you had a synthesizer too.
What's that?
You had a synthesizer.
We had it was an old Chord.
Yeah, but you had the pitch wheel, and so there's the Bob Moog thing again.
Right. And well, on the Yamaha, that you and I have the same keyboard, that old Yamaha from 2002 that we still have. It's got great sounds for one thing. I mean, this was part of the thing, but it's got that pitch wheel in it. And if he just, like I said, if he had just patented that, he would have been extremely wealthy. Maybe not even if he had done that, maybe he would have gone on to do anything else, because it seems like that was a thing with him, was just, keeping business afloat, whatever.
Yeah.
But his impact is monumental. He's up there. He's in the Inventors Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's anything like Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I would probably not, because he wasn't a musician. Or at least for some kind of, like you said, Mark, some kind of like Kennedy Award, or some kind of award for contributing to the contribution is enormous.
There's people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that didn't necessarily play an instrument. He should be, but
shouldn't be like Carly Simon.
He's associated with prog music, so that'll keep him out,
Yeah. Well, he's associated with prog initially because of the impact in the early 70s. But if you look at modern music, hip hop, trip hop, they're using the same, whether they're using samples of it or not, or using the actual instruments themselves. But I'm sure Beck has used them. I mean, like I said, we probably scratched the surface of how many songs. If you said what is the mini Moog going from 1970 up until 2022?
Well, if you go see Zebra now live, Felix Hanneman still has his mini Moog up on there, and unlike Geddy Lee, who had one up there, but I don't think he used it, Felix still uses his, and they have to tune that thing up. That's a wild thing. A keyboard is tuned up. Here's a little trivia. There were very few of those full units made that Keith Emerson had. Even Rick Wakeman didn't have that. It disappeared for years. It was in a warehouse in Rochester. And when they dug it out, now you know what old electronics are like. You dig out an old guitar amp, or you dig out an old radio.
It's green.
Everything is crackly. Yeah. Can you imagine, like when Bruce Pilato, the ELP's manager, had it dug out? Someone got assigned to get that working again because they toured with it and they used it. Can you imagine going through all those connections? And God, I can't imagine that,
As far as cleaning them and just maintaining them.
Speaking of that, I heard this story, and I don't know if you've heard it, but an old Moog synthesizer turned up from a museum, and it came to a museum, and the museum had it cleaned, and it was the one with the patch cable, so it was an actual Moog, not a mini Moog.
It was the modular. The first Moog, the first modular one, yeah.
And the person cleaning it started tripping on acid because of the acid and the drugs that were in the console. I'm telling you, I read this. Yep.
Was he
I
licking?
will try and find it.
Where did you?
Was he licking the thing?
Where did you find this, Perry?
It came in through his fingers or.
That's hysterical. I think if you actually clean the board that Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumors on, you probably get a cocaine high.
I will. Well, what about who's the guy from Foo Fighters? Dave Grohl. He owns that board from Sunset Sound, right?
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Oh,
the Neve board.
Yeah. The Neve board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead,
sorry, Mark.
Oh no, I'm going to have to research that Dream Theater thing when they did the Octavarium concert at Radio City. That was probably Keith's rig. I'm going to research that because that thing had everything that Keith had. How many of those were made? Very few, I'm sure.
I read there's a certain quantity of the first Moog, like 100 something maybe. It would have been cool for us to bring up a theremin sample because I mean, like I said, if you're of a certain age, if you saw like any horror movie in the 60s or 50s, you heard the theremin. The comedian Robert Klein used to make fun of. He used to mention that in his comedy routines, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime something
I've
eerie
seen someone on
happened.
YouTube who played the theremin. She's a professional theremin player.
Oh yeah. My friend from Asheville. Actually, I saw him recently. Wayne Kirby, Dr. Wayne Kirby. The same thing. He does these things. He goes to Europe and he plays theremin concerts. He does expositions and instrumental instruction stuff. It's amazing the whole electronic aspect of music.
Yep.
I've heard some John Cage stuff early on, but now that we mention these things, I want to start delving deeper and deeper into it. Like being who we are as we are, and like the music we're exposed to. We've heard the Kraftwerk, the Brian Eno stuff, but there's other things to delve in there. I mean, the Bach stuff from Wendy Carlos, born Walter Carlos. Interesting story. Interesting stuff. Like, I mean, how did they on those little keyboards? I mean, they must have. I mean, I'm not a musician like that, a drummer, but like, were they octave splitting, like to create all those textures and all those different keys using a keyboard?
You had to be as much a tech head as a musician to do that.
Yeah. And have a whole lot of assistance,
And like, Lou, what about this thing that one of the earliest compositions from Milton Babbitt? That was pretty interesting stuff. I was listening to it.
Milton, I've heard of it. You got it?
1960.
60 or 16?
60.
Okay.
Sounds more like Charlie Babbitt.
It sounds like it's like a cat running across the keyboard in a lot of ways.
But that was the height of Italo rock here in the U.S.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well,
that was a damn good era, Mark. It was a
Philip
great
Glass,
era.
right? Philip Glass, all these experimental artists.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing an old thing on YouTube about Frank Zappa on the Mike Douglas show, and he had a bicycle wheel, and he was spinning it and playing it with a bow, and he was being laughed at. And Zappa didn't mind, but what does it tell you, right? Like, they didn't understand people who were forward thinking as far as being artistic, right?
Right.
No, I guess a lot of the stuff, the craft work and I mean that's for like real music. Like, people love music. I mean, it's a common denominator amongst people. It is a universal language, but some people like top 40. Some people like this. Some people like everything.
Yeah.
Some people like nothing that's commercial. Some people like oddball stuff.
Yeah.
Our friend from Tennessee, he turned Mark on the Porcupine Tree.
Who's I'm on the bus and it's a drug to me.
Yeah, well, great, isn't it? It's beautiful. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's shared.
Yeah.
But like these pioneers, they were just they only had to do it for themselves and for people that were into it. They didn't have, if you don't have to sell records, it's great. You can do anything. But it's amazing how it worked its way into the mainstream, whether you knew it or not.
Exactly.
Maxwell Silver Hammer, I think it's a stupid song.
It's the dumbest song.
It's one of those songs like, okay, Paul,
it's the dumbest song.
You are a genius. You are. I'm not worthy. We're not worthy. But that one,
Steve Martin did a good version of it. Come on,
of Maxwell Silver Hammer. Get out of here, did he really?
What's in the Sgt. Pepper movie? Didn't he do Maxwell Silver Hammer?
Oh my God! I didn't see the whole thing.
But I mean, it proves the point. So I mean,
I don't know if you're right about.
Didn't Sting,
I was being sarcastic.
Didn't Sting prove that you can do the dumbest, like do da like a smash hit? It's nothing. It's
Yeah.
He probably wrote that in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
A catchy little thing, for 5 minutes. But he proved his point that you can write a song about nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
do we have Lou?
Mark? Lou looks like he may have froze up for a minute.
Okay.
I don't know.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't the one that froze up. Let me just mention one thing really quick. It just hit me this afternoon. Music came full circle for me today. I'm a big Pat Metheny fan, jazz guitar player, big Grateful Dead fan.
Died.
No. But we're a big Grateful Dead fan. I found out years ago, and I always suspected that the Dead and Metheny had a connection. Rob Eaton, who is Pat Metheny's engineer, was the Dead archivist, but I found out today that Steve Wilson from Porcupine Tree is remixing Grateful Dead's American Beauty in Dolby Atmos. So another one of my favorite musicians. This is Steve Wilson remixing a Grateful Dead album in Dolby Atmos. I'm like,
what
it's all
is
coming
Dolby
together.
Atmos? What is that?
So we went from stereo.
Yeah.
There was quadraphonic briefly in the 70s, but 5.1 is left and right speaker, left and right behind you, and a center channel. That was surrounds with music for many years.
5 speakers with 5.0 was 5 speakers, right?
Then they went to 7.1, which is speakers on your side and 2 speakers behind you. Dolby Atmos now puts 2 speakers above you. And at first I thought it was overkill, but I'm thinking about it. That actually makes sense. It really could make a good listening experience. So I'm going to have to blow the money on a Dolby Atmos system. But
it does. I used to work at a few facilities when I was a healthcare worker, and they had that many speakers, and then the ones above you, and boy, the sound is really something.
It is, and it's got to be done properly. You got to do it right. You can't just have all the music coming through there, just certain things. But I'm very excited to hear that Steve Wilson's now starting to work on the Dead. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am not a Dead fan. I
know you're not.
I am not. Like I said, for however much material they have, I probably like 3 songs.
They wrote some really good pop songs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just me. I mean, I know that they are, super huge, but I don't know. It's the same thing with Neil Young. Neil Young has so many records. I probably like a dozen Neil Young songs.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing about music, Who's chiming in from the other dimension? Yeah,
he says he's auto rebooting or something. So,
okay.
Yeah. We'll hang in. We're at an hour and a half already, so we'll see if he comes back in because I think he's supposed to recommend a record for us to listen to.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
I want to mention something while we're waiting for Lou. I think I told you this. We're talking about the Grateful Dead. You don't really like them, and it's cool. You know, like we all like what he likes. So today, I'm on this Facebook group about compact discs, and people put a picture of what they're listening to that day. And I'm like, you know, don't damn somebody for liking somebody. So somebody put up a picture of they were listening to Van Halen 3, which is the album they did with Gary Cherone on vocals. It was like, you know, most people hate it. I have an affinity for it, but whatever. The guy put it up. He liked it. If you saw those comments, album sucks. You don't know what you're listening to. The worst album ever. And I just had to chime in and say, stop damning this guy for it. Say, in my opinion. I know I overkill this thing, but I am so tired of people. Like, we have so much to fight about in this world. And there's these people they're screwing this guy saying he doesn't know what he's listening to. He likes it. Leave him alone. Leave him alone, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the Grateful Dead, but I'm not going to say anything disparaging about the Grateful Dead. I mean, you know, eventually I may, you know, listen to a lot more Dead and decide I like more songs by them.
And when we were all young, we would try to turn people onto our music. So I'd be like, you don't like Rush? You gotta like them. Then I hit a point where I'm like, someone doesn't like Rush? Who cares? Who cares? They don't like them. They don't like them, you know?
Yeah. Well, there was some group back, I guess it was in the 80s. I don't know if they were, I think they might have been a punk group. And they had a song called I'll Be Grateful When They're Dead. you know, stuff like that.
And then we had someone on radio say, just another dead hippie when Jerry Garcia died, but we won't say who that was.
Why? Who said that?
Somebody who co-opted a Pretender song for his theme song. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, really?
That was the reason that certain Al Franken used Grateful Dead for his bed music. So, but, you know, it's just like, as far as music, like, let's all say, if somebody says, I like an album, and I've never heard it, I don't like it, the last thing I'm going to do is go and say, that album sucks. If I don't like what they like, I won't even comment. You know, I'll just leave it alone. This is like teenagers when we were kids. Like, the new Kiss album, it sucks. I like it. No, it sucks. Like, come on, calm down.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we're all children deep down inside sometimes, right?
Yeah, we are. Children of the grave, as Black Sabbath said.
But we covered a lot of ground today, right? We covered,
we did.
Well, 1974, we really just cracked the surface of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we really could have gotten into some of the records for 1970. I mean, we can't go through the whole year. I mean, we'll do, you know, a 2.5-hour show just on 1974, really. If we break it all down and, you know, decipher every record that came out. I mean, didn't Elton John have Benny and the Jets, 1974?
That was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Wasn't that 73?
You know, I don't know. I'm talking about like the single on the radio, Benny and the Jets. Yeah. That might have been 1974. But wow, and that was done in the studio, and they, you know, the engineer, right, and the producer just made it sound, you know, put in the audience sounds, and a lot of people thought it was a live record.
I was a kid and I had that 45 and I was playing it and I thought it was live. I was like 6 years old, you know. What was
the record label? Was it on Caribou Records or something like that?
No, it was in the MCA, I believe, because I saw it was all right, so the record label was black with a little rainbow coming in. I believe that was MCA Records. I remember playing that 45. Yes, MCA for sure.
Remember Capricorn Records?
Southern Rock.
Right? Like the Allman Brothers were on Capricorn. I'm not an Allman Brothers fan, but they were on Capricorn Records. A lot of people had those albums.
I think the Outlaws too, right?
Yeah, that label doesn't exist anymore, right?
Right.
Capricorn Records.
I was reading up on them. I was actually going to bring it up on the show because they had kind of an interesting beginnings too, but I got to read up on it more. But yeah, they're probably responsible for what we term Southern Rock.
Really?
Yeah. And Southern Rock, I don't consider the Allman Southern Rock myself. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I was just thinking about these record labels. Like, remember Chrysalis Records?
Oh, yeah. The Doors.
Nah, really?
Yeah, and I
thought it was like Pat Benatar was on Chrysalis or something.
That was later, but maybe I used to play Doors records in the late 70s. My sister gave me. They were on Chrysalis Records.
The Doors were on Chrysalis Records, really?
It was that butterfly on the label, which I love.
Yeah. They Metamorphosis, yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that they maybe by the time I got those records in the late 70s, Chrysalis was issuing, but I think they were a label in the 60s, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those labels. I remember when I was a kid, with all these 45s that I had. Well, my sister really had them, but I always remembered, I could tell the labels. Like, we had a Tom Jones record, and it was on Parrot Records.
Yeah.
Those kind of labels.
I liked Electra Asylum because it had kind of a doorway. So I was playing like the first Eagles album.
Yep.
And then the really cool one, Swan Song to me. Any kid loves Swan Song. You had that angel. That was so cool looking.
Yeah, well, there were only really 2 acts on Swan Song, Bad Company and Led Zeppelin, right?
Yeah. There were a few others too,
Oh, yeah?
Didn't go anywhere, yeah. Manticore Records, which was ELP's label.
Yeah. That you mean they had their own record label?
And it was brief. And I have a friend that tried to find their office in New York, and he went to the office, and it was just like a shell thing. Like he went to his office, nothing there, and it said Manticore Records. They signed one label, and then it didn't work. A lot of bands started their own label, and then they realized, shit, this is not easy. So, yep.
Yeah, I just remember like seeing the record labels and Chicago. Chicago was on, they had the plain, it was just Columbia Records, right?
Yeah.
It was just like a reddish orange label, just said Columbia on it. That was it.
My favorite.
Nothing fancy.
My favorite was Atlantic with the red and the, what was the other color on that? But that was the coolest label to me.
Yeah. Now they had subsidiaries too, because I remember Clapton Records were on Atco, which is Atlantic Company, right? Mm-hmm. They were on Atco. Then there was Epic.
Yes.
Remember Epic Records?
Yep.
That was, what was that? Part of CBS? No, part of Warner Brothers?
Yeah, I think,
no, the Doors were on Elektra. They were on Elektra. They were on Elektra. Yeah.
But see, now I remember specifically playing some Doors albums that had that Chrysalis label. Unless I'm thinking Elektra, so totally off on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember the Doors being on Elektra Records, but maybe someone will correct us. Right? Somebody's listening.
I hope they do. Call me an idiot. The cheesiest label was RSO, Robert Stigwood's. Ugh. It looked like schlock,
Yeah. Yep. They had the Bee Gees, of course, right?
Yep. Eric Clapton.
That's right. Robert Stigwood Organization. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the real boutique. The real thing, like when a band in the 70s was able to put their own label on a record, was like the ultimate. So like Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Brain Salad Surgery had the skull on there. That was like the coolest. Yeah. That you knew that band was big,
Yeah. To be able to afford that, right?
Yep. Yeah. I'll go one step further. I remember being a little kid and playing like a Yes album. And when you pulled the inner sleeve out of any of these bands on Atlantic, unless they had a predetermined sleeve with lyrics,
right?
Atlantic would just put little pictures of all their albums on the inner sleeve. And I remember looking and seeing all these albums, and I remember seeing those.
I seem to remember that too. Yeah. Yep.
And here I am. I'm 6 years old, and there's a Roxy Music album with the cover is 2 girls. One girl, they're both naked. One's covering this, one's covering this. And I remember looking at that and going, holy shit.
Think about the strategy. I mean, they're promoting, they're advertising for their own other products, right?
Oh yeah, and I think I probably bought a few albums because of that.
That's the great thing. I forgot about that. Is back then, you open up the album, you pulled out, the album had liner notes, pictures, and everything. Then you pulled out the sleeve. The sleeve was another pice of artwork in and of itself.
Yeah.
Of course, later on they just started using clear, Mylar sleeves.
Yeah. That's when I got out of vinyl, because in the 80s I thought I got out of vinyl. I love vinyl. CD is my favorite format, but vinyl, I didn't realize in the 80s they were getting cheap. The records got really thin, and they weren't using. They were just trying to like.
Yeah,
they
you
knew-
hold them in
yeah.
your hand like this, and they're
Yeah.
wobbly. They're wobbling like that.
Yeah, on a hot summer
Yeah.
day, you could be like, and
Yep.
yeah, the cheap clear plastic. What the hell? But they were just cutting costs any way they could.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to catch up with Lou next week.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll say, if anyone likes this, click like on YouTube or right, subscribe, because it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to a YouTube channel. It's completely free.
Anybody with the World Wide Web can go to YouTube.
Right?
But just so everyone knows, in addition to YouTube, we're on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you want to write us, our email address is musicrelishpodcast@gmail.com. I'll repeat it one more time. musicrelishpodcast@gmail.com. You're welcome to criticize any of our mistakes.
Yep. And of course, we'll acknowledge our friends, Tom Spallone from Going Postal Podcast,
Absolutely.
and Scott McLean and Jack Calabrese from Milk Crates and Turntables.
When you say Jack Calabrese, I think Green Monalishi. Jack Calabrese with the two-pronged crown.
Really?
That was... Oh, Lou's back.
Oh, Lou.
Yeah.
Hello. We were just about to sign off, but now we can get to ask you about what record you want to recommend that we listen to.
Let's give him a second there to get his audio back so we can hear him.
Okay.
Maybe I should get my guitar and strum. I mean, I could strum my guitar here. I wouldn't get in trouble. Another show, I'd get in trouble.
So as we said, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to our channel. It doesn't. It's completely free.
This is the pre-Lou music.
Oh yeah, it's Lou's birthday as well, right? So. Okay, so
Waiting for
I
Lou.
guess-
He should be on any second.
so
I want to know what album he's recommending to us. I'm dying to hear some new music. And you got me into a couple great things. Lou got me into an album that like I never knew about.
well, I can remember that you gave me. I mean, I was always a fan of the Jam, but then you handed me a couple of Paul Weller records. One of them was 22 Dreams, right?
Yeah.
And then another one you gave me what's it called? All the Best or
Hit Parade?
no, you gave me another one.
There's a
And,
few I gave you.
Yeah.
And
there-
I wasn't so much, I didn't know the Jam and Style Council. I was introduced to Paul Weller by a good friend of mine, Steve Flanagan.
Yeah.
And he got me into, like, I went back. So I heard Paul Weller's first solo album, and then holy shit, Style Council, great. Holy shit, Jam. I didn't know about it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing I admire about Paul Weller is the fact that he's been asked, is you going to ever get the Jam back together? Unequivocally, absolutely no fucking way.
Yeah.
So
He's never going back. That would be such a step backwards. And kudos to him. He doesn't take the money. There's been no Jam reformation.
yeah.
It'd be horrible,
But the thing is, too, like 22 Dreams, it's a very acoustic record, 12-string guitars and all that. And then you give me another one, and it's kind of a little more soulful. So he's always moving forward. Right?
Yep. And he had an album that was very influenced by Burt Bacharach called Sunset Boulevard, and that's a very good album because he was always in. He has a big liking of the Burt Bacharach sound, and he fits that so good.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
well. I'll tell you what. I think Lou's having some issues there. Maybe we should just hold off the recommended album until next week.
all right. So let me see if I can cue up the closing theme here, and then we can.
If he comes back during the closing theme, we'll have closing theme interrupt us, and we'll bring him back on. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, we could do it that way. Yep. And
I'm just a schmuck. Well, we can play this.
Well, anyway, there it goes. There's the closing theme called Asheville Skyline, which is kind of where Lou lives, right?
Good memories of a great
In
trip.
Asheville. Yep. So,
Let's see if he.
let's see if he's coming back. Let's see what we have.
Lou's the new Colonel Kurtz. We can't get him.
He's up the Mekong River, right?
You don't know, man. You don't know, man.
Well, you know what? It's his birthday, so we'll give him
Yeah.
a pass, right?
He's got to go drink.
Yeah, and he has to get a pizza delivered. Well, let's say goodnight. Good night, Mark.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Lou.
Good night, Lou. Good night, Perry.
Good night, people out there. And Music Relish Podcast, gmail.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Facebook,
And,
Spotify, Apple Music.
and wherever else we may be.
Please.
We're out there on the interwebs, right?
The internets.
The internets. I think the song is about to come to an end.
Yes. Because that guy can't play a solo is worth his life.
Here we go. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next time, guys.
Y'all come back now.
Fare thee well.